Welcome to the I Induce the Real Estate Sustainable Living podcast. Today we have a very special guest. She is Kia Baker. She is the creator and host of the Female Veterans podcast and Hot Topics Live. And well, now we're going to talk about a new series she's doing, The Women Warriors. Is that called?
Women Warrior Stories?
Women Warrior Stories. Okay, yeah. Well, that's actually how I consider you. And I feel it's amazing because it's such a good reflection of you. Kia was mentoring us at the Brian Rose Broadcast Yourself course. And her acompañamiento, I don't know this word, like how you hold the space, how she holds the space for the students, how she helps us like strive in what we're looking to do, and like she's always like inspiring us to do it better. I'm so grateful with you, Kia, and it's such an honor for me to have you here to do my first live with you. I just did it because like StreamYard charged me this month and I forgot to cancel the subscription, and I was like, I'm gonna use it, thank you so much, I'm gonna use it. So welcome, Kia.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be your first live interview guest.
We are here. Well, I am here in Nevada City. It's 7:52 in the afternoon. Where are you, Kia?
I am just north of Portland, Oregon, and it is 7:52 as well for me.
Wow. I haven't been in Oregon, but I've heard so many beautiful things. What's your experience there?
Wow, I love the Pacific Northwest. It is so gorgeous. I mean, it's just to me unparalleled beauty. I mean, I imagine that Hawaii is beautiful, and I grew up in Pennsylvania and that was beautiful. And I lived in Chicago and Miami and Arizona. And of course, every place has its beauty, but for some reason, the Pacific Northwest is just some sort of, I don't know, paradise, especially in the summertime. In the summertime, it's amazing.
There, like, what would be one thing that you could mention that pops out from Oregon and from the rest of the world?
Oh, it's so green. It's so green. And I know there's a lot of places that are so green, but also it's a place where you are encouraged to be unique and be yourself, no matter how weird you are. For example, the city slogan for Portland is "Keep Portland Weird."
And why is that?
Just because, it's really eclectic here. There's so many different kinds of people, and with so much individuality and spirituality and uniqueness and lots of hippies, and it's just a place where you can go and vibe to your own like frequency.
Yeah, well, that's, I don't perceive you as very hippie, but I do perceive you as a very spiritual woman. Were you born there, or where were you born?
No, actually, I'm from the East Coast. I was born in Philadelphia and raised in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. That's funny because I have an ex-boyfriend that is a veteran, and he's from Pennsylvania too. So the only two veterans I know are from Pennsylvania. What's going on?
That's ironic.
Yeah, Kia, would you want to tell us a little bit about the Female Veterans podcast? Like, why did you do that show? What's your story with the Navy?
So I went into the Navy. I enlisted in my junior year of high school. I knew that I was going to go to the military. I scored very well on the ASVAB, which is like the military sort of SATs. And and I could have any job that I wanted. So I chose to go to the hospital corps, and it was sort of a toss up between going in as an officer and going in as enlisted. And I opted for enlisted because I would owe less time to the Navy. And I knew before I went in that it was not a career choice. It wasn't going to be a long-term thing for me. It was going to be a means to secure money towards my higher education, which is what I wanted. And after I left the military, I would pursue other things. And so I wanted the minimum amount of time that I had to obligate my life to being a possession of the United States government.
Okay, and with that view of the service to the government, like, why would you take that choice?
So my mother, it was her dream to be in the Army. And I have an aunt who retired from the Army in the early 90s. And she wanted to go. And when I was about 6 years old, she was training for boot camp. And she sent us to live with my grandfather. And she was going to go off to boot camp. And then suddenly, about a month and a half, maybe 2 months into this process, she came back to get us because she was pregnant, and she was at the maximum age you could be. So she would age out by the time she had the baby and everything like that. She wouldn't be able to go in and serve. And it was really her dream. It was a big dream for her. And she had children really young. And this was the first time that her kids were old enough. Like, I was the baby at the time. And she thought, okay, I can go do this, and I can, fulfill that dream finally. And she'd heard such wonderful things from her sister. Her little sister was serving. And so it went unfulfilled for her. So when I got old enough, I kind of said to her, actually, the story goes, it's time for me to start picking out colleges. And she said, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. And she said, and anyway, you're strong and you're smart. You're going into the military. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, you're going into the military because it will be a really firm, strong, good foundation for which you can build a real good life upon. It will get you set in the right path. And I was like, fine. Okay, Mom, if it's going to make you happy, because that's the kind of kid that I was. And I knew that she was going to be living sort of vicariously through me. And I just wanted to please her. I was that kind of kid. So I thought, okay, well, I can get college money out of it. And I can sort of have these wonderful experiences that will create a foundation for me to be really successful in life. And it will be easy for me because I was coming from private school that was really structured. And I thought, okay, structure to structure is easy. So I've already got cleaning. I've already got all of that. The only thing I was a little worried about was the physical training. And I didn't really know what to expect, but I resolved that I would do it. And I did.
Wow. So what was these things, wonderful things they talked about? What's the wonderful things about being in the Navy or being in the military?
Well, there, as with anything, are good and bad, but there are a lot of really wonderful things about serving your country. And not to mention, I am at heart really patriotic. And there are lots of things that I don't like about the country and the way it's run. And there are lots of things that I love about the country and the people and everything like that. So I believe in, the right for freedom, to preserve and protect freedoms. And so that was really important for me to do. And so I really enjoyed the people, the culture of brother and sister sort of energy, which I was very fortunate to experience because it's not always like that. So it's supposed to be, but it isn't always like that. It sort of differs from military base to military base and is dependent upon the leadership. So I was fortunate to find a group of amazing people, and that quickly became my family. And I began to realize that friends were the family you picked for yourself. And I really, I loved the job. I loved what I did in the military as well. And so, I mean, I created a really happy life for myself, despite the fact that I really didn't belong there. I didn't have the right mentality for it. I didn't have the right heart for it. I was resistant to the programming just innately. I didn't program like other people, so it made me feel sort of like an outsider. It actually made me an outsider. Um, but and there is a lot of favoritism and a lot of politics in serving too. So I learned a lot about how to navigate that, and it's much worse in the civilian world. So that served me well when I went into corporate America. I learned there's so many things you learn there, that they teach you and that you learn just from being in. And that's all good. The learning, the lessons, the takeaways are all really amazing. And learning how to be, learning that perseverance is a superpower, learning to take accountability for your actions, learning to toughen up, and withstand more than most people can withstand. Those are good things to take away from serving.
Yeah, well, that's amazing what you're talking about, because you're talking about belonging, responsibility, which, yeah, I do associate like the military as belonging. Like if you wouldn't feel that, I guess like nobody would be there, right? Like you're there because you feel you are useful in some way, and you have like this, yeah, the family sense, um, and the responsibility of the actions. I think that's a very strong thing to talk about, because of course, like sometimes it's good actions and sometimes it may hurt a lot of people. So how do you see responsibility within the Navy, like from the inside? I guess with the Navy, you're gonna tell me like if I'm wrong, but maybe it's easier than with the military because the missions are kind of different most of the time, but not really sure. So you can talk more about this.
Well, I think what you're saying is, for example, the Marines and the Army, they're on the ground, right? So if they are deployed somewhere and they have to see action, then it's going to be a lot of sort of, person to person, you're shooting at each other, that kind of thing. You see that kind of action on a ground level. Vice, if you're on a ship or if you're on a plane, like in the Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very different way of experiencing that action.
Yeah, it's like distant, you mean?
Mm-hmm. It's much more distant. It's not as personal of a way of engaging, I would say.
Yeah. Did you ever get to go to war or any kind of mission like this? What was like the hardest thing for you to experience?
So, and during my service, I served during the last peacetime that we have seen since. And I used to be really like, I would say almost ashamed to say I didn't see action. And now I'm so proud of that, because we just have these endless wars that we continue to be a part of. And so my experience was very different than the ones that a lot of the girls that I interview actually for my podcast. And because I didn't deploy, I was actually stateside the entire time of my service, which was 5 years active and 3 years in active reserve. And so I was on U.S. soil the whole time. I worked in the hospital, and I finished my career as a pharmacist. And so that's kind of what I did. For me, it was like having a job, right? It was like having a 9 to 5. By my second year in, I had an apartment that was not on the base, had a car, I paid my bills. I went to work. I didn't wear my uniform to work. I changed into it once I got there. I did my job. I took my uniform off. I went home. I did what I wanted. And that's some true words. I really rebelled a lot in the military as well. My awakening began while I was serving, so that made me see things very, very differently than everyone around me. It actually made me really distrustful of the government. Serving, that's what it did. Actually, if I'm honest, serving actually made me super anti-establishment, like super anti-establishment. It's very ironic that I went into corporate America when I left there, but it was an experience. And I actually ended up leaving corporate America too, because I was anti-establishment. I mean, I didn't even vote until probably 2008. So, I mean, I was against all of it for so long. For so long, I was anti everything, anti anything that had to do with the government and establishment.
Yeah, and why? Why so? What's your experience with that?
The reason that I created my podcast, the Female Veterans Podcast, was because I knew very well that not everybody had a good experience while serving. And I know very well that there was a culture of silence surrounding military stories in general, male or female, and that the general public had no idea what we experienced while we were serving. So that being said, I also couldn't think of anyone that I knew that hadn't at least witnessed some type of sexual harassment or bullying or homophobia or even rape. So I knew that, or persecution's another one. So I knew that people had trauma that they experienced while serving. And I wanted to share the good and the bad, the reality, the real stories of serving, and bring that out.
Yeah, I think that is so needed. This friend of mine, like, he tells me so many stories. He got to go to war, like,
that's a different ball game.
Yeah, like a very different story. He got cancer at some point.
Wow.
Yeah, he was not feeling good about the experiences there. He was feeling like kind of left out in so many ways, like, yeah, kind of like not taken care of, like that sense of family completely disappeared at some point, and it was like, oh my gosh, you're just using me and all of my friends. So I guess, yeah, like, there's a lot of harsh experiences to be processed there, and it's good to process them in community, I guess, because we can always, like, share this light, and then that being can always, we always have the opportunity of elevating our thoughts towards the divine, and getting clearer on what we want to experience, because we are creating these experiences once and again and again, and we're just telling the same story in our heads, and then, like, repeating the story, and then hating more, and then having more resentment, and then it doesn't seem to go away, right? So I think it's a very, very beautiful service that you're doing there, and more because you have, like, the real view from the inside, and you can actually, you're talking about an awakening. What about that awakening?
Well, I will say, I will preface this by saying that my experience in the military is not that unusual, but it is. For example, when I was serving, and I was stationed near Chicago, and there were all of these underground parties that were really, they were very secretive, but very few people knew about them. But if you went to them, it was really fun. and really amazing. And so for me, because I was serving during peacetime, I was able to go to these. And I started going at 19 because I was too young to get into the clubs. I think 20, actually 20. And I was too young to get into the clubs. And I loved to dance. So I would go to these underground parties. And I had a lot of experiences there that changed my perspective on life and the way I thought. Like I really expanded my awareness at these parties. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what does that mean to you? Like, what is exactly, how do you experience like being more aware?
So for me, it was experimentation and just, starting to learn about psychedelics and exploring that world, which now you have to understand, there are very firm rules about this. The military has its own justice code. It's called the UCMJ. And there is a zero tolerance policy for things such as underage drinking and drugs of any sort and all of that. Right. But because I had a difficult time being programmed, I did what I wanted. And, I had my first experiences at these underground parties. And it's not what I went for, and it's not what I did all the time. I went there to dance. I had a whole dance crew. We would go have dance battles and things like that. Like if you've ever seen the show ABDC, it's an old show on MTV, but it was like dance offs, and that's kind of what we were doing. Although it was not really competitive in nature, it was just more or less, groups of dancers that sort of showed off for each other in a way. So that was our experience anyway. And while I was doing that, because I was a trained hospital corpsman, a lot of the people at these parties were high school students and young adults like I was. And I had a job. I was on my own. I had my own place, my own car, and I had income. So I was much more mature, I think, than a lot of the people there. And my friends and I, being that we were all sworn, had an oath to take care of people that might be in danger or need our help. As a hospital corpsman, we helped a lot of people, and it was such a benefit to them for us to be there. We stopped at car accidents. We helped, I'm sure, more than one overdose situation. We stopped violence. It was something that we did. I'm actually writing a novel based on my experiences. Really slowly. I've been writing it forever. Someday it will be finished, but I have been writing this fiction. It's a fiction based on these experiences that I had while serving. So at night, it was sort of these experiences, and in the day, it was more or less in uniform, doing my job, being responsible. And so it was a split life, like it was a double life, a double identity, if you will. And that's how I made it through my years in the military. It's how I was able to cope with the whole situation, because I did witness a lot of things that made me really distrustful of the establishment and everything like that. And even the women that I interview now, the experiences that they have, especially while deployed, to me are unbelievable, almost unbelievable. If I hadn't have been there and experienced what I saw and experienced, it would be hard to believe what some of these women go through, because it's not always, a brotherhood, a sisterhood. And like I said, it depends on the base, and it depends on where you are, what you experience. I was fortunate. There were tons of women where I was, and I still experience my share of sexual harassment. You toughen up to it, I didn't have a lot of issues because I was the girl who had a dirty sense of humor anyway. So
Yeah.
I didn't mind those inappropriate jokes and things like that. But other girls, we were young women, like it was definitely inappropriate, definitely being approached for sexual things, and that was not appropriate. When I was stationed, there was a rapist loose, I think, for like 3 months on the base. I can remember the feeling of being terrified to come to return to the barracks at night. Yeah, it was, there was a lot of good and bad. It
Yeah,
was,
that
it's,
sounds like something um, not so easy to solve. In as you just said, I think it's a lot about how we think and how we actually perceive things. And like the experience with hallucinogens, of course it's strong, because then you're just like expanding your perception,
mhm.
basically. And then it's like those senses, like they just open and you get to see so much. And yeah, of course, as you say, like within my own experience, I went through this part where suddenly, like, going out with friends that were drinking alcohol, and then starting to go out with friends that were taking hallucinogens, it was completely different. It was so peaceful and loving, and like
Mhm.
no more fights in the bar, no more like women like competition, like I want that girl. It was all love and peace, and yeah, we can all share. And of course it has like its own challenges, but it completely changes, and it's something that stays with you forever. Even though you stop doing it, you can never go back. You cannot pretend you didn't see,
Mhm.
you didn't feel that love and um, that consciousness. That yeah. So yeah, I definitely like get what you're trying to say, and what you're expressing. Um, so yeah, like, what's the things you think that has stayed with you the most, and that you're using in order to take that responsibility that you're talking about, like, nowadays?
You mean the things that I learned in the military?
No, within that like state of consciousness that you reached, that
Oh
awareness.
my God. That's just the gift that keeps on giving. I was already a really positive and loving person. Like, I think I've always been into positive psychology before I knew it was a thing. And so it just expanded upon that. And so I was a very loving and caring soul, even in the military. Like, it didn't change. It didn't change me, the military. I stayed the same. I became more of who I am because of those experiences. I just learned to, what that taught me was, it helped me learn to navigate the system better in order to, in order to stay safe, right? But to approach everyone with, even despite some of the things that I saw and witnessed and experienced, to still maintain that same loving energy and be willing to share it.
This is what you call creating with the universe.
So, in a way, because I believe that we are responsible for our experiences, right? And if you don't take accountability for what happens in your life, meaning if you are sleepwalking through life, if you're stuck in a routine, and we all have our routine, right? Routine is good to an extent. But if you're in this routine where you're just kind of living your life on autopilot, which I've absolutely done, even after this experience in the military, because it's easy to sort of regress a little bit. And then you find yourself again, you reawaken yourself. Um, it's it's something that you have to do, because if you don't, live in the present moment, and you're not conscious. And that's what the psychedelics helped me with, actually, was to be more conscious and in the present moment. You your subconscious mind your subconscious programming will dictate what unfolds in your life. And if that's happening to you, then whatever programming you received as a child, from your experiences and what you witnessed while you were still in your theta state, mentally. Hi, Angelo. Hi, sweetie. Then you will be repeating that energy in your life, in your present moment. So if you have a lot of negative self-talk, if you have a lot of negative programming, you will experience more negativity in your present moments. The way that you change that is by understanding that you are a creator, that you have God energy within you, and that you can co-create your experiences moment to moment. So once you're aware that you haven't been doing that, so then you were unconscious. And psychedelics do help with this. They help you become more conscious, right? So once you become conscious in your present moment, right, you can begin to visualize the life you want to be living. And once you can visualize it, once you can see it, you can begin to create it by taking action steps to bring it into being. So you can shift your entire world, your entire reality, everything about your life. You can shift that by visualizing and by taking steps to bring it into fruition. And that's what I consider creating with the universe. That's what because there is, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, whatever, there is a higher energy. There is an energy out there that allows you to tap into unlimited possibilities. And because there are unlimited possibilities for what you can experience, you can choose, because there's so much power and the ability to choose. Some people will say free will, right? So because you can choose, you can make choices that change the way you are living your life. You're not stuck. You can create the life you want to be living if you release any limiting beliefs about that and just take the steps you need to take and crush the fear and the external resistance that will come in your way to make it happen for yourself. So that's another thing that goes back to the military, which is perseverance. And I believe that it's a superpower. So that's a gift that I got there that has served me very well in my life, even against the government itself. Because when I left the military sick, I acquired some illnesses while I was serving. And I had to fight for them to acknowledge the fact that these illnesses I went in healthy and I'm leaving sick. So I had to fight the government for them to acknowledge my illnesses and take responsibility for them in a court case. So that perseverance, that was a 10-year process, Kia against the United States government, right? So, that's like David and Goliath, if you will, right? But that perseverance is what kept me going. And they taught it to me. They made me a fighter. So when I had to fight them, I had the skills and the knowledge and the intestinal fortitude, if you will, to do it. But yeah, all of that goes together, and persevering, to bring that visualization, that dream that you have for your life and making it a reality is number one. That's what you need.
Yeah, you're saying so many different and interesting things. You're talking about will, which for me, like, it's more like we have to strive for a good will, like not just like, okay, I want this. But I was just talking to a friend, like, yeah, what are you wishing? Be careful with what you wish, because you might want, I don't know, this boyfriend or that car or that thing, but what's the cost of that, and where is it taking you? Are you giving the power to those things, or do you actually acknowledge that you are that power, that you are God, meaning a lot of people, I include myself in there, don't like the word God. And I do understand it, because we have been like taught that there is an outer God or an outer power, a higher power, that's there to punish us or to bless us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody says what God really is, and God is good, and God is light, and God is consciousness, and God is mind, because we can actually not mind the brain, the
Mm-hmm.
mind,
One mind.
that consciousness, that
Mm-hmm.
state where we decide to live. And we're like deepening now in the topic of this talk, actually. So, and then it's very interesting, because of course you need like that perseverance, and to achieve that goodwill, like to always want to be good in the sense of quality and not in a moral sense. And hi, Lorena, beautiful. Lorena is an amazing chef. Uh,
Ooh, and I love
yeah,
amazing food.
yeah. We
Hello,
gotta
Lorraine.
bring her someday. um, and so, of course, there's this energy which we call God, that we all are particles of God, meaning like we have all the substance, like every quality, ability, everything about God, even though we're not the, like we are the fullness, but not the whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very interesting, because God is in our service. Like our energy is serving us, and nobody teaches us that we can use that. God is here to be utilized. So people keep praying like desperately, right? When this is another thing. Like I was talking about the with the father of my son. He talks like so many languages. He's amazing in that like sense, like such a box of secrets. Um, and he was saying, right, in Arameo, I don't know if that's the right way to say Arameo in English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Aramean.
And the language, Aramaic,
Yeah, Aramaic. Right.
the
So the
language.
word faith actually means, which means certainty, complete certainty, and that's where amen comes from. And people, it's not like let it be like that, but it's like it is like that, and we have to like actually get with that perseverance and that repetition and that conviction. We have to actually know that we are good, and then that naturally expresses. So this is, I think, one of the hardest, because sometimes it means we have to let go first fear, and
Mm-hmm.
then that thing that we thought we desired. And I think that is a very hard one, because we live in a material world, right? Like we believe we are matter, which again brings us back to we are not what we see, we are not what we hear, we are not what we can touch, we are not what we're tasting, we are life, right? So I think that is like, I don't know, amazing what you're just sharing with us.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you use that energy within your life?
Well, it is life. So, that life force energy, it is what inspires me really to just continue to create and to help others to create their best life and their best experiences, so that's for me is what it comes down to serve, like from being in the military. I have the I would say the spirit of servitude. So, and it began there because that's why they call it serving. You're serving your country to serve. So I serve others. I serve my female veterans by helping them to heal through sharing their stories. I serve my students at London Real Academy by helping to facilitate their internal transformation. You know, we are doing a project, we're creating a podcast or a business, or we're learning about crypto these days with the new course. Or we're accelerating our lives, or learning to do speeches. That's what people come to the academy for. But what they get when they get there is something so much more. They get a transformation through the process of creating this thing that they want to create. And so, or learn, right? And so it is a privilege and an honor to get to be a part of helping people to go through this transformation that occurs at London Real Academy. So that's one aspect. And so, and with Hot Topics Live, it's the same thing. It's bringing interesting and amazing people to have this conversation about what their topic is, and sharing that with our global community. And helping, you know, if one person, and this is what I said when I created my podcast, and this is how I feel about every single thing that I do in life. If it can help one person, then it's okay. Whatever effort, whatever energy I expend, then it's worth it, because one life was touched in even some small way. And so it makes it's fulfilling for me. So giving is receiving for me. And and that's how I use that energy in one way. And another way is to be constantly co-creating with the universe the experiences that I want to have in my life. And it's kind of like what you said. What is the intention behind that? The intention is what is key. The intention is what is really important. That is what helps you to create your best life with the universe. When you go into the energy and you're going to manipulate energy, it's a very powerful thing. See, people think that money is the most important thing, but it's energy, because money is energy. So time and energy are the most valuable things we have. Although I will say that time is an illusion, it's a man-made construct. And we know that, but we know that we're going to go through these evolutions, and we're going to go through, you know, days, and we know that our life is going to come to an end. So to measure that, we'll just say time. And because we're going towards this ending, what we have is so important. So we have to value that energy that we expend through time very greatly. So energy, really, to me, is the most valuable thing we have aside of time. And so if you're going to be manipulating it, if you're going to be creating with it, then you have to be aware of what your intentions are. And you have to go within, you know, to get yourself right in order to attract the things that you want into your experience.
Yes, completely. Like it's all about enjoying and like letting go again, right? Like the wrong desires. And what's the choices you make nowadays, like for yourself? What's that values that you're accomplishing right now, that you are expressing and living and enjoying?
For me, self-love is paramount. Self-love, for me, everything begins and ends with self-love, right? And showing up for yourself, and living in your truth, but being truthful to yourself. It all starts there, because if you can't show up for yourself, if you can't trust yourself, if you can't love yourself, if you can't talk to yourself like you're your own most beloved, then every person you come into contact with, you know, you are unable to give them what you're seeking from them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think that's the most important thing for me right now, is to just continue to have my intention set correctly, have my priority straight. That is self-love, and then making sure that my cup is so full that it can then overflow And when it overflows, then it can spill out into the world and do good. And that's always my intention, to do my greatest good, to achieve my greatest and highest good, and to share that with others.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And what's those things, Angelo?
For
If
sure.
you want to ask her anything, Angelo has a podcast too.
Of
I love
course.
that friends show up here because we get to, like, for people to know them. Like, it's amazing. You have to go and check their work. Um, so yeah, if you have any question for Kia, please post it here and we can talk about it. That would be very nurturing for all of us. Um, what's like, because it's sometimes not easy, Kia. It's very hard, actually. It sounds, we're making it like sound like, yeah, we just
Yeah, it
put up
seems
our
so easy.
intentions and we're good. And it's
Light a
like, yeah,
candle.
but the real thing is like, we have pain, and we, like, or we think we have pain. Yeah, I'm talking against myself, right?
Mhm.
So I think I have pain. And how do you manage that in a daily basis? What's the things you do in order to accomplish that good
So
intention?
the first thing is, what my experience is that, you have to embrace the darker aspects of yourself. You have to integrate, sometimes we are not our best selves, and we don't make the right choice. Actually, there are no wrong choices, but we think that we're not making the right choice, and it brings us to what we would call suffering, right? And a lot of times we don't even realize that we've become addicted to our own suffering. And so we continually make choices that perpetuate that suffering, right? And you have to, just like sugar, just like anything else. And so we perceive that we're in pain. And we often will blame others for that pain, which is not taking maximum accountability, because you are the inflictor of your own pain. You're abusing yourself. Stop it. And it's really seems hard. It seems really hard. And I there's so many people that I talk to that will tell me, it's not easy. It's not as easy. And you know what? The first thing I learned from my own spiritual guide was, it is that easy. It's a choice. The actions after the choice might be what's harder, you perceive as harder, right? It's all perception anyway, right? So it's the choice. First, you make the choice. It's just like, for example, you want to lose 10 pounds, right? You want to lose 10 pounds, or you want to gain 10 pounds. You first have to decide that you're going to. Okay. And then you take the steps that you need to take. I might start working out every day, running on the treadmill, whatever you're going to do to lose those 10 pounds. But first, you have to decide. If you don't decide, no one can decide for you, you have to decide. So if you're suffering from a broken heart, right, you perceive that you're in pain. And yes, when you think you are in pain, you will experience physical pain. So I've experienced heartbreak so bad. And by the way, I am twice divorced. So I've experienced heartbreak, just so we know that I'm just not talking shit, right? So
Yeah.
well, I've experienced pain so bad that it felt physical. It felt like my heart was breaking out of my chest and crumbling into dust. Okay. So
Mhm.
I have experienced, everything hurt, right? Your physical body will experience physical pain from your mind. It's very powerful. If your mind can heal your body, it can obviously make you feel as if you're having pain. Okay.
Yeah.
It'll register pain. We'll say it that way. And so the first thing I had to do was decide that I wasn't going to be in pain anymore. I didn't want to feel it anymore. And then understanding the power of your own mind and the ability to go, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to suffer anymore. I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. It's the same thing. And I gave up sugar, right? Right? Like, it's the same thing, but it's pain and it's suffering, and it's so much harder. We perceive it as so much harder because it's our heart and our mind, and we're having repetitive thoughts about this breakup or about this thing, the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, even. And it's painful. When my mother passed away, it was painful. Okay, it felt painful. But at some point, I had to decide to get out of bed. At some point, I had to decide that I had to stop crying. It was a decision, right? And that is what it all comes down to, is making that first choice of saying, I don't want to suffer anymore. Okay, I embrace the fact that this hurt me. You know, this did not feel good. It was not a great experience. I'm not happy. In fact, I have had 8 weeks of what I would call tower moments, if you know what that is. But it's a foundation crumbling. So shocking, unexpected turn of events that have sort of turned my world upside down, off and on for the last 8 weeks, to the point where it got to this past week of me saying, okay, this doesn't feel good. What do I need to do? I need to shift my thinking. Mm-hmm. I need a shift. So what do I need to do? And acknowledging the pain, acknowledging what I went through. I'm not saying ignore it. You have to feel what you feel. But what I'm saying is that you have to decide when that you're ready to begin to come out of that, and to visualize a new reality for yourself and what that's going to look like. And now what do you have to do to achieve that reality?
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. It is amazing because, yeah, a lot of people talk like, and more within the transpersonal, like psychotherapy current, there's a lot of like thinking that we have to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, nobody's talking about that power of choice. Like, it's an inherent ability of life, that freedom. And that freedom means I am free to choose. I am free to think and be convinced of whatever I want to experience, as you just said. And yeah, like the choices are like the key of everything. And then from there, like just taking that love, like creating that love with this conviction, which is basically that action. I would translate it in that way for now. I think that's real power, right? Like that's love. And it's undestroyable because you're the only one. Like nobody can think for us. So it's, if we don't take that choice, nobody's going to do it for us. And yeah, I feel that pain has to do, or that thought of pain has to do with, again, letting go, because we have to, it's like I felt it in some part of my path as if I was betraying kind of my lineage in some way, you know, like if you were, everything we know we have to forget, and we have to start supplying with that visualization, as you just said, like with the good thoughts or the thoughts we want to experience in order for them to happen. So what we really have to take care of is what we're thinking next, because what we thought, it's already expressed, we're already seeing it. And it's as simple as, okay, I think I'm thirsty, I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna get a glass of water, and I'm gonna have this coffee, and then there it comes, like that responsibility, that ability of responding actually to life, or solving those issues we're experiencing. So I feel that that is a very, very good point. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And wow, I guess this, again, about these 8 weeks that you're going through, like just experiencing all of these things and the way you're dealing with it, I so much admire you in the way I see the light in you, and I know you're completely capable of like supplying in the right way. So yeah, what's the hardest thing you've had to get over, and how did you, I mean, now we know your method, but how did you accomplish to let go those things that you needed to let go?
Well, I'm not a very young lady. very young. So I've had a lot of things that have happened in my life that we could say were heartbreaking disappointments, right? But I think probably um, the loss of my mother is at the top because we had a tumultuous relationship. I am a child abuse survivor. And if you watch Hot Topics Live, you know all about that. You know about that. And actually, you know a lot of things about me if you watch Hot Topics Live. And that was really hard. The loss of the marriage to my children's father, that in the same year, like that was a difficult year. Like having to leave my husband of 13 years and my children's father. 5 months after my mother passed away. And I think what made it even harder is because my mother and I didn't speak for 10 years prior to her death because, and she died unexpectedly. Even though she was sick, she had a lot of health issues, but she died unexpectedly. And I always hoped that we would be able to have a relationship again. But she was mentally ill and she was not on the right medication. And I set a boundary. Probably the first really strong boundary I ever set in my life was with my mother. And I told her, if you don't get on the proper meds, then I can't have you in my life and in my kids' life because you're abusive when you're not well. And I'm too old to be getting mommy issues. I was in my 30s at the time. And I felt like in order to be, our last interaction sent me into therapy for 6 months. Now, I started art painting. I started doing art therapy, which was actually the gift of that. But, you know, I had a small child at the time and I felt like I needed to ensure my mental health was well. And that meant that I had to set that boundary with her. And so when she passed away, I'd hoped that she would one day, because we had about 8 years of her life, in my adult life, where we were really close because she was on the right meds. And then for some reason they switched her medication and she began to deteriorate, and it just really was bad. So, you know, it just had to happen that way. And so for me, that was really difficult to come to terms with, to accept and to get over, that we would not have a chance to mend that relationship. And I had to sort of forgive her and work through those issues posthumously for her. So yeah, that is actually what was really difficult for me. And how did I get over it? It was actually really simple. I surprisingly, I grieved, of course. I grieved. And I then, at about a week after she died, so the day that I found out she passed away was February 17th. And I began to do a voice recording. And I started to talk about how I was feeling, like sort of journaling it, but speaking it, because I couldn't even pick up a pen or anything like that. And then I did that for probably the first 7 days. And then after that, I started journaling because I'm very into journaling and meditation. So I started journaling my feelings. And then to get to the point where, and this is in between crying and carrying on, right? And then it got to the point where I was like, I have to forgive her if I'm going to have any peace. I have to forgive her for me, right? Not necessarily for her, but for my own well-being. And so what I did was I lit a bunch of candles, a bunch of white candles. I saged my house down with white sage. And I got out a pen and piece of paper and I wrote her a letter. And then at the end of that letter, I still wasn't done. So I just started talking to her because you know what? She's energy, which means she's everywhere. She just transformed, right? And so I just started talking to her and saying everything else, everything I really needed to get off my chest as if she was in the room. And that is what I did. And then at the end of that whole experience, I was home alone. At the end of that whole experience, I burned the letter and I said, I release the energy. I release this. I cut the cord of this. I detach from this energy. And then I blew out all the candles. And then I went to sleep. I think I cried myself to sleep. And then the next day I got up and I was ready to start my life and let that be what it was. That's what I did.
Wow. It's a big thing because when you're talking and you emphasize it about forgiveness, which is also a very complex kind of like concept, because I don't know why we have such a hard time sometimes understanding this, if it's so logic, like it's so reasonable that we have to forgive ourselves for thinking or feeling what we are deciding to think and feel, again, decision, and then acting towards that or in congruency with that. And it doesn't matter how you do it. Like you decided for candles and sage and it's beautiful and you get that sensation and that certainty and that affirmation where everything's good. And yeah, we are energy or consciousness and that means I am the one being aware of her existence because I am the fullness of life and I am her in some way. So she is within me, she is in me, and I'm deciding to love you versus suffering you or fearing your loss, because that would be how do you say that, like negando, like canceling her in some certain way, like it's us that stop perceiving those beings, and then we just start like we just don't perceive them anymore when they think they pass away, but they're like just continuing their transition. And there's so many ways of seeing that, and so many beings like developing the necessary abilities to actually like communicate in some way, which I always think it's again like themselves talking to themselves and being certain of what they're doing and what they're saying, and then they're just manifesting it again. So that's beautiful, and that like it's so powerful to take that decision of moving forward, because of course then you're just like allowing yourself to take a new decision in your life and like let go fear in that painful experience and amplify it in your life as love, like actually transform that energy in love, which it just makes us like love in a more real way, right? Like it's again elevating that desire, elevating that thought, that action. And what's the plans that you have right now for all these knowledge and the sharing of it and helping us all make better decisions and act in a better way?
Well, right now I am really dedicated to growing my YouTube channel. It's really, really new. I have 18 subscribers. So I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to get to 100. So if you go to my YouTube channel for Hot Topics Live and click subscribe, or you can go to my Facebook page and you can find it there, or you can go to my Hot Topics Live page.
What's your Facebook name? I'm going to leave the link, of course, and it's going to be in Spotify, YouTube. Now we're transmitting in YouTube, Facebook. But mention it, please.
So you can go to Hot Topics Live on Facebook, and you can see all of the episodes. There's well over 100 episodes. We started there, so that's where we have our biggest, I think, following is on Facebook. And we're a global show, and so we started there. And this last week we had a huge shift when my co-host announced that she would be leaving the show. And so I had to change everything. And now I will have a new guest host with me for every episode if I'm not alone with my guest. And so, actually, Diana, I would love it if you would come and be a guest host on Hot Topics Live for an upcoming episode.
I completely see us partying there. Like,
have such a good time. Hot Topics Live is fun, and that's where I get to. So the Female Veterans Podcast is for women, and actually surprisingly has a lot of male listeners, which I'm so impressed by. So shout out to all the men who are actually listening to this. But that Female Veterans Podcast was made for women, not necessarily veteran women only, but for women, young girls who were thinking about going into the military so they could hear the stories of what happens there, good and bad, because I tell everything. You know, not everybody has a bad experience, not everybody has a good experience, but we get the true story and we get some inspiration and we get some advice from these women. And it's amazing. And healing in a lot of ways for a lot of people. So that's my female veterans mission. That is, you know, something that's very dear to my heart. But that's not all I am, more than that. And I have a lot of knowledge. I think if you live to be a certain age, you become an expert in several things. But not what I'm great at is connecting with people. And because I meet so many incredible people, such as yourself, because you were on the last episode of Hot Topics Live, that I get to share you with the global community that really follows that show. And we get to share all of this amazing insight and knowledge, my own, my guests, and my co-hosts' knowledge with the world, with the hope that we can help one person, inspire one person, motivate one person to have a better life experience today, right now, and visualize a better world for the whole world and themselves, because it starts with us, for tomorrow. So that's what Hot Topics Live is about. And you can find that on YouTube. And when you do, go and subscribe. Probably the easiest way to find it is to type in Hot Topics Live or follow the link. Actually, the link is better because sometimes it doesn't come up because it's so new. So definitely follow the link in the episode description of this show. Or you can follow me on Instagram. All the links are there as well at Hot Topics, the podcast on Instagram, and or at Kiativity. It's like Kia and positivity. I made up a word. I actually had a student who was a wordsmith, and he's really incredible at making up entire languages, which is really cool. He will be on Hot Topics soon. But that was my word that I made up. And it is a fusion of Kia and positivity. And you can follow me on Instagram, and I do all my modeling photos are there. Success strategies and tips are there. My microblogs, excuse me. And microblogs. What else is there? Whatever I'm up to personally. And then again, like I said, at Hot Topics, the podcast, you can find the links for YouTube on there. That's probably the easiest way to do it because it's such a new show on there. I have several episodes up, including yours, Diana. And that's what I'm about now. And I'm also, starting my own small production company right now. It's called Magnum Opus Multimedia. Registering it this week. It's very new. Whoa. And going for my first project is a documentary film. It's a feature. It's tentatively called John Smith, United States Army. It's about a group of female veterans who served in World War II, and their advocates who have been fighting valiantly for them to get the Congressional Gold Medal. So it follows that story, sort of tells you who they were, why what they did is important, and follows the journey of them going for this highest award that you can receive for support role like they had. So that's the documentary film, and I'm looking for sponsors right now. So that's all in the works. I've got a lot of pitch meetings coming up, and I'm just going for it because it's what I want to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's super beautiful to have the opportunity to actually reflect with you and with your network and because that's, yeah, I think collective decisions as in a political way sometimes are not very useful because we don't really know how to deal with that and that responsibility of like whatever we decided in mass because we didn't have so many options, but the reflecting and the deducing like what do I really want, and to be able to listen to so many people and their wisdom. I feel that is very important. Like before, we used to have like this opportunity of reading books, and there is this Fukuoka, the creator of, or yeah, of permaculture. He had this book he wrote to say like don't read books because you disconnect from the real essence of life. Yeah, like you start like just putting yourself like in a box kind of, right? But now with the media and everything, like we have so many opportunities of just listening to one and then the other, and then like actually thinking for ourselves. Like there's so much. And also, I mean, in the same way, like we are just attracting what we really think. We're always having to take that responsibility of, okay, I'm listening to Kia, I'm listening what I'm listening, like Angelo or Lorena can be listening something very different, and to take that responsibility again of this is what I decide to take from Kia. And I think that's inspiration, that's real inspiration, as you said before, you were talking about inspiration, and it's everything that you want to take from others, which is just what you're thinking about others, because that's not what they are. And I honor that position that you're taking about positivity, because even though it might sound very light and it's a happy word, yeah, like um, it is more than that. I don't know how to explain it, like there is no words, but it is positivity and it is very useful. And I, before like letting you go, I would, do you have more time?
Yeah, I have some time.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to know how you work with your children. Like how do you raise them? What's the values you put on them? Like what's the decisions you're taking to leave this legado, this how do you say that, heritage to humanity?
Well, I think as one, you become a mother, I hope that you want to create good humans, right? You want to create well adjusted, happy, healthy humans. And you want to send them out into the world as young adults that will go and do good in the world, right? And be, I don't want to say positive members of society, but just be good and be good to other people and do good in the world, right? And so for me, I think how I raise my children, first and foremost, is to show up for themselves, to be individual, to be proud of who they are and how they think, to think for themselves. That's really important, because when you've been programmed, and I will say was very resistant to a lot of the programming in the military, but was not completely resistant. So when you've been programmed, and we are all programmed because we're programmed from birth, right? So when you've been programmed and you're also aware you've been programmed, right? Because a lot of people don't realize they have been, then you become very aware of the fact that thinking for yourself and being an individual is really, really important. So that's another takeaway from my time in the military, because in the military, it's all about conforming. And I believe conformity is the enemy of mankind, to be honest with you. And so it's really important for me to instill a sense of, of service and caring about mankind, but being who you are and being okay with who you are. And in fact, loving who you are and thinking for yourself and challenging those that who are around you, instead of just going along with the crowd, and standing up for yourself and showing up for yourself, creating that sustainable life for yourself, within yourself first,
Mm.
and that's kind of how I raise my kids. Lots and lots and lots and lots of love, lots and lots and lots of affection. They probably, my teenager, it gets forced on him.
Yeah.
But he will never tell you. Like, he might have some complaints about, growing up, because I mean, nobody's perfect. They don't come with a handbook. We're all just trying to do the best that we can, and mistakes are made, right? Especially with the first one. But 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 you own it. You
I'm the
own it.
first one.
No, but you own it, right? And then
No, but my parents always say that.
right?
And I can see it. Like, I just have one child, but we
Yeah.
get to experience a lot of
Yeah.
ignorance.
Yeah, it's true. And like, if you have another one, you've learned from the thing, you know what I mean? It's a learning experience too, as a parent. And from the time he was, I think, 3 years old, we were watching, I think, cartoons, and it was, I think, on Nickelodeon, and they had this commercial that would come on, and it would say, "We're not perfect, we're parents." And I forget what the commercial was about, but that was the slogan. And I would say that to him all the time, and I still say it to him. So when he says, "Mom, I was a kid, you told me this. How come it's different for Lucas, like for the baby?" And I'd be like, we're not perfect. We're parents. So that's kind of how I kind of, it is what it is. It's lessons. We don't fail. We learn, and we keep going forward. And so while he is actually really spoiled, don't get me wrong, okay, that's a part of the lesson. Don't spoil them. but he's a good human, and I'm very proud of him, and he's incredibly intelligent. I homeschooled him up until this year, until he's going to his first in-person school in the fall. He started in the summer program there. He loves it. He's learning a trade. It shocks people when I tell them I don't want him to go to college, even though I have dual degrees, right? So it shocks them.
It's just inverse psychology.
Well, I don't want
I
him
want
to.
you
It's
to go
not.
to college, okay?
I don't.
Prohibited.
I don't want him to go. I really don't want him to go. And it does shock people that I feel like it's more important for him to learn a trade and learn how to operate a business and to be self-employed than to go to school, right, and spend those 4 years at school. I'd rather him learn a trade that he can do to make money while he saves money to open his own business. Like, those are the kind of things that I teach him about cryptocurrency. Like, I have a different model for. And when I lived in Florida, it was very frowned upon by my family there. It was because it was different. I didn't conform. And I would always say, I'm tired of trying to put a round peg, in a square hole. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. And I realized that much younger, and made an entire shift in my life in the way I was going to raise my kids. And it caused a lot of conflict with their father, but I was really firm in the way that I want them to be raised. And I'm now single. That's how firm I was. And but I'm doing it, and my kids are good. They're healthy. They're well adjusted. They're happy as fuck, actually, and that makes me happy. Right. So we do the best that we can. And I think that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to put good humans out in the world. That's my intention. That's the intention I've set. And I take action steps to try to do that. And I'm not so set in any way. I'm flexible. So if something's not working, just like in business, just like with my podcasts, if something's not working, I'm not set. I'm not tunnel vision. I am flexible enough to adjust and to reevaluate and to make shifts in order to keep moving in the right direction. So,
yeah, completely. You just mentioned perfection, and we wanted to talk a little bit about that too. And I think it's important because there's these, like koans, like acertijos, like these things that might look contradictory in life, but it's a very subtle line in between having the knowledge and applying it towards life and just the opposite. And I feel like us as human beings, because we feel so incomplete and so imperfect and so everything, we just give it a reality. But the truth is we are completely perfect, and every decision we take is perfect. And talking about raising kids, we actually like get to learn that it doesn't matter where we're going, it matters how we're getting there. And that's the perfection, like putting attention to those indicators that we express as different experiences for our body. And then like being ambitious of good, being ambitious of life. I think that's a great secret. Uh, and it's something that helps a lot, like going out of perfectionism, where we feel so incapable and we are judging ourselves constantly. And today this other friend was telling me about, like, he was pointing like a gun to me, like with the fingers. This is like the other way, right? And he was like, every time we like want to shoot someone, we're like, there's three fingers pointing at us, like, again, right? So the more we judge our children, the more we are like just believing we're not doing the right thing, and that we are imperfect, and we're just transmitting that to children, where we make them think they have to actually accomplish something other than just enjoying life, right? And it doesn't matter, again, like what we're doing, what's the choices we made, uh, or the acts we did. I think we always have that opportunity of seeing light in the present moment, and enjoying that light, enjoying that consciousness of, oh, this is me, this is my decisions, this is my acts. And you know what? I want to live. I decide I want to live now. I decide I want to love now. I decide I want to love myself, and I want to share that love with the world. And that is, like, our kids are representing that. And I think to hold the space for oneself as a parent is one of the greatest missions that we have. Like, whoever is thinking about having a child or wants to have children, like, it's the most amazing experience ever. It makes you grow so much. And of course, if you don't want, like, just stay away, because it's a long journey. And I think it is a responsibility in the end. Like, we get to use all of our abilities. Like, there's no, like, I'm feeling sick, um you make yourself the food, like, no, 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 like, you have to feed the kid.
Well, when they get old enough.
Yeah.
When they get older, my 15-year-old can take care of himself. Like, I tell him the kitchen closes at this time. If you're out, because he has a curfew, if they're out and if he's not home when dinner time is, well, I taught him how to cook. He's been cooking. I taught him life skills. And in fact, honestly, he is the only one. He's the only homeschooled one, right, of his friends. He is the only one who knows how to cook, who knows how to do laundry, who knows how to sew, who knows life skills, right? And I tell him, these are life skills. Your chores are life skills. You find a way to enjoy them. Find a way to enjoy it when you have to do it.
So important, because it actually makes them feel so useful. I see how Yango, for example, he's learning. He's gonna be 11, but he comes in the night when I'm working, and he's like, "Mom, do you want something for dinner?" And I'm like, just proving him, like, just trying him. I'm like, "Yeah, would you make me some quesadillas?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes down, he makes the quesadillas, and then he comes back, and he's like, when I finish, like, "Do you want more?" I'm like, trying him again, like, let's see what he says. It's 11:30 in the night, or 12. And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I would like 2 more." And he goes, "Okay." And he goes down and he cooks another 2 quesadillas. I'm like, wow, he actually did it. Thank you so much. But what I'm seeing there is, like, of course, I've transmitted him that. You know, if I had given him the example of, no, I cannot take care of you, I that's not in my possibilities, he wouldn't be doing that today.
No,
And
no. I
that's the
mean,
importance of loving
it,
oneself.
it is really important. And I think it comes back to you, right? It really
Mhm.
comes back to you. So I think I'm very blessed in the fact that of how my kids are with me. And it could be different. You know, I see different things with other people's children. No judgment. It's but I chose a different path, and this is the result of that path with for me and my children. And I am blessed that my oldest will cook. He doesn't want to cook for himself. He really wants to cook for me. He doesn't want to. He wants the easy way out. That's my kid as often as possible. But when he's on his moments, he's really amazing, and he's really kind, and he's really giving, and he really takes care of his friends, and he tells me all the time, because in this area it's the trend for the kids to be depressed. So he's the only one of his friends that is not depressed, not really. And
Wow.
he will say that he is to fit in, but he's not that kid, right? And he's actually the one that all the kids go to, right? So he's a little light in the world already, and I see that. And it's just a beautiful thing. And it's, and when he cooks for me or he does things for me when I'm sick, or I hear him saying to his little brother, he's 6, and he'll say, I have, I'm going out today, but mom's not feeling well, so I need you to take care of her while I'm gone. And I hear him say that from my room to my 6-year-old. It's just like, and then the 6-year-old feels like it's his responsibility to look after me. It's so sweet. Like I'm very blessed to have I'm raising gentlemen, and I'm raising sweethearts, and they're tough. They're tough young men, but they're also very kind and very sweet. And they both want to do good in the world. And that makes me really proud. So as a mom, that I've done something right somehow.
Yeah, yeah, completely.
Yeah.
We do everything right just by existing. And
Mhm.
that sense of learning how to love oneself through others, I think it's so important. You know, that's our opportunity.
It's
Again, we
beautiful.
come to the same thing. Like we get to learn how to love through others. And that's amazing. And to wrap this conversation, I would like to ask you, what would be that advice that you would give your 18-year-old self, 18-year-old self, when you're just like, like turning into an adult and you're like grabbing your identity and trying to get out of the shell, which means all history. It means everything we love, everything we know, everything, like to find ourselves, like when we're starting to go back to oneself. What would be that advice?
Love yourself first. Love yourself first. And your energy attracts your tribe. And don't let the world make you jaded, hard, or negative. Keep being that positive light. That's who you are. And continue to love yourself. And don't allow others to make you feel like you need to dim your light to fit in. It's on them, not you. So people will come in and out of your life. Your job is to keep shining. And anyone who can't stand your light, let them go. What's meant for you will never pass you by. That's my advice for me at 18.
I so appreciate it. I so appreciate it, and I hope our viewers and listeners can get the most of this conversation. I feel it's pure gold if you know how to utilize this information, which is God again, which is us, which is life. Hello, sweetie. There's a little one there.
My baby just came in and he's hanging out with us.
I need to Let me go pee and you come with me.
Okay, give me 2 seconds and I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Let's close this conversation first. You and your kids. Thank you so much, Kia. Thank you so much. I love you. We are Hub
I love
Kamal,
you.
the perfect blog, the perfect hub. We'll see you soon. Either Hot Topics Live, you can follow Kia, please, or this is I Induce the Real Estate Sustainable Living Podcast. Thank you, Kia, so much. Have a great night. Ciao.
Mom, I'm about to pee.